Russell blasted Hamilton and Verstappen. It's been a hell of a season for Russell, the guy who has had an absolutely amazing debut with the Silver Arrows. What is even more spectacular is the fact that he was able to beat Hamilton in his first season with Mercedes, being only the third teammate of the seven-time world champion to beat him in a direct battle on the same team. Obviously, it's a huge achievement, and Russell is very proud of it, which is why he spoke recently about his current state at Mercedes and gave a brutal assessment of his fight with Hamilton and Verstappen in the future. Russell joined Mercedes this season, and while many thought his arrival was long overdue, Russell demonstrated his seriousness from the start. He put in the work, and when the W13 was struggling a lot, Russell was the one that brought constant points to the team by finishing in the top 5. Hamilton, on the other hand, had a very troublesome start to the season, and quite frankly, that is why he struggled to keep up with the young Brit in the second half of the season as well. What goes in Russell's narrative is the fact that he was used to driving a bad car in Williams, and that is something that Hamilton said too. However, Hamilton also added that Russell wasn't experimented on as much as he was throughout the first half of the season, which is why Hamilton struggled to find the pace and B1 with the car. According to Russell, this is a lie, and both of them had the same car over the race weekends. But this is just the first jab that Russell took at Hamilton, and it's the tip of the iceberg. Obviously, with Russell being a little more arrogant in Mercedes than he was with Williams, the chances of winning a championship have increased significantly. He won the first pole position and the first win of his career with Mercedes, and he was the most responsible guy for Mercedes winning one race in the 2022 season, the most devastating one for the team ever since 2011. On the other hand, Hamilton has notched his first winless season of his career, and while he was close to challenging Russell in Sao Paulo and actually overtook him throughout the safety car entrance, Russell also felt like he was being challenged by his teammate. The young Brit also discussed the difficulty of keeping Hamilton behind in Sao Paulo, saying, "The last 10 laps I knew if I made one mistake here, he'll be in DRS and who knows what will happen. I can't afford to manage the tyres, I just need to absolutely go for it." The last 10 laps of that race were 100 times harder than what the first 60 laps were. I could do the first 60 laps every weekend, but those last 10 laps, the pace is so high and you just cannot afford a mistake. However, we did see that Russell's races in Japan, Singapore and the United States of America were quite compromised by the team's tactics and the driver's mistakes as well, which is why he said that he needed to put on a brave face in moments like this and get over them with dignity. On top of that, he added that whoever manages to beat Hamilton in a fair and square battle with the same team, 95% of the time goes on to win the championship, sometimes later in his career. That is something that Russell himself hopes he will do, but is the championship really achievable as of now? Obviously, Verstappen is in a league of his own, but if there is one driver that could properly challenge Verstappen in different machinery, that has to be Russell. We've seen that the W13 has proven much better in the last few races of the season compared to the entirety of the season, especially in the first half of it. However, Russell has put a mark on Mercedes with the fact that he beat Hamilton, who has been the legend of the team and the guy that brought 6 titles to Mercedes from 2014 to 2020. And with Russell being better, now the future needs to change. While many thought that Russell was going to be the obedient rookie and the guy that is supposed to listen to whatever is said to him, this turned out to be far from the truth. Now that he's been able to beat Hamilton, he has his eyes set on the championship, something that may look like a far-fetched goal to us, but definitely looks like the near future for Russell. After all, Russell did have a hard time seeing the guys that he graduated with, Alex Albon and Lando Norris, compete on top-performing teams such as Red Bull and McLaren respectively, while Russell was stuck in Williams. On top of that, he spoke about Verstappen and how he plans to beat him, along with his teammate Hamilton next year. But before we get to that, let's see what Russell has to say about the struggles of seeing his younger colleagues being promoted while he was stuck in a non-performing Williams car. It was definitely a bitter pill to swallow for the young Brit, as he added, "That was a really unique season for my first year in Formula 1, joining Williams and a team that was on the brink of bankruptcy. And it was a team of every single race weekend. It was racing to survive. It wasn't racing to perform. The team was racing to survive, and the 800 people's jobs at stake. And there was no doubt, when I got to the first race in Australia, I'm here in Formula 1, almost one dream accomplished, and get out on track and we're 4 seconds off the pace. The car is falling apart, and we're being lapped 2 or 3 times. Kind of thinking to yourself, Is this the dream? Further, he added that seeing Alex score podiums with Red Bull and Norris constantly being in the high points finish has only fueled a fire in him rather than disappointing him to a certain degree, which is why he kept his head down and continued to hunt the Mercedes seat. Russell was given a chance in Mercedes alongside Bottas in 2020 because Hamilton tested positive for COVID-19, and rest assured that if it hadn't been for the team's botched tyre strategy, he would have finished first. Nevertheless, it's all in the past now, and Russell does seem to understand what it takes to beat Hamilton and Verstappen and become a world champion. Although the W13 turned out to be a very problematic car for Mercedes, Russell did show a lot of versatility, and thanks to his feedback, the engineers were able to solve a lot of problems and make it a bit more competitive, especially in the second half of the season. Now that new regulations are ready to hit the sport from 2023 on, it seems like Russell is going to enjoy a very good time in Mercedes, and if he is able to beat Hamilton again, then it's very likely that the 7-time world champion is going to think about retirement much sooner than we originally anticipated. When talking about this matter and beating Verstappen and Hamilton to the championship, Russell added, "Every race I go to, I fight to do the best job possible, whether that is fighting for a victory as we were in Brazil or fighting for last place as we were at Williams. If we do get to the first race next year and we realize we've got a car that's capable of winning, I'm still going to be approaching it exactly the same. I think I've got enough experience now that I feel ready to fight for a championship and be able to handle the challenges and difficulties that come with it. Obviously, the likes of Lewis and Max have more experience in that scenario, but if you go out and you put it on pole and win every race, you'll be world champion. It's much easier said than done, and Russell knows that better than anybody else. Still, his spirit is definitely the right one when it comes to winning championships, and if you think about it, Russell does have the capacity and the potential to be a world champion one day. The fact that he was able to beat Hamilton in his first year at Mercedes says a lot, and despite Mercedes having a very difficult season, we couldn't ignore the fact that Russell was able to finish in the top 5 in almost every race this season, including the team's only win in Brazil. Therefore, Russell is ready to conquer the grid and become the next champion in 2023. With the new regulations and the floor edges being raised, the field is going to be leveled even more, which is why Russell is going to have a proper chance at the championship fight. If not, at least he'll receive a chance to notch a couple more wins in his career. What do you think about Russell's statement on Verstappen and Hamilton? Let us know in the comments below.